Hey Absol-lites, my newer Pokemon challenge runs have been fun, but they've been pretty standard, so let's do one that I have literally never heard of before. Today's the day we figure out, can I beat Pokemon Fire Red with a team only ever having 3 Pokemon? Okay, so let's explain what on earth that actually means. At any given time, I can only have 3 Pokemon in my party. If I have more than that, I need to rush to a Pokemon Center to box one as soon as I can. That includes my HM slave, so if I have an HM slave on the team, I can only have 2 other Pokemon. That means I'll need to try and put as many HMs as I can on party Pokemon, so that I don't have a dead slot. Also, if I'm using just a single use of Fly, I can just withdraw that Pokemon as long as I put it away right where I'm going, because that just saves time. So, okay, here's the rules for this challenge. I can only ever have 3 Pokemon on my team, as I just said. See what I just said for what that means. Like always, no items in battle, and no glitches or exploits. And lastly, only 1 legendary, because I want to use Zapdos, but if I use all 3 legendary birds, that would just make it way too easy. Like always, I'm writing my script as I go, so let me know if you think I can win or not. I'm confident that I can win, but this will probably be really interesting, so I'm looking forward to it. Let's go! Right off the bat, I don't actually need to use the Universal Pokemon Randomizer for anything, so I just picked my starter to be Bulbasaur, because I used Blastoise in my Nuzlocke I did, and I don't really feel like using Charizard. I name it Otis, because, you know, oats. Here's our stats. Our nature is Column, so less attack and more special defense. I'm fine with that, but I would have probably liked more special attack. Okay, so here's something really weird that happened. I went to the optional rival battle in Viridian City for experience, and it literally just didn't show up. Like, the rival never even stopped me like he normally does. I lost the first rival battle thanks to him using Leer and me having an attack-lowering nature, so I guess that has something to do with it, but seriously, I've never seen this happen before. Weird. With Otis at level 13, I tried Brock. Unsurprisingly, he was a cakewalk, thanks to me having Stab from Vine Whip, a quad super effective move. I'm predicting the early parts of this run will be really easy, but it might get a bit harder later on. Battling trainers, Otis evolved into Ivysaur, which is fun. Right before Mount Moon, I caught a few Nidorans. I needed to make sure that the one I got had either an adamant or lonely nature, plus I caught one more for HMs. We're gonna call the one that I caught to actually use Emperor, but I didn't actually give it a nickname because I caught quite a few, so just bear with me. Along the way to Misty, I took the Helix fossil. I knew if I didn't say what I took, you'd all ask. Actually, now that I think about it, everyone asks anyway. Comes so good for the YouTube algorithm. I was going along to said Misty fight when Emperor evolved into Nidorino, so I used a Moonstone to evolve it into a Nidoking, since I don't need to wait for moves. With Otis at level 20, I tried Misty. Staryu should have been a one-shot, but I'm using Bullet Seed, and it only hit twice, so I needed to attack a second time. Next is Starmie, and I set up Sleep Powder and Leech Seed. And then a lot of stuff happened with her healing and whatnot, but eventually I took her down, after Sleep Powder staying around for frankly way longer than it probably should have. I led with Emperor the Nidoking for Pidgeotto, set up 1 Leer to make his hits do more damage, and all you need to know is that I eventually finished off Pidgeotto after him getting poisoned by Poison Point and me switching to Otis to keep Emperor healthy, because I knew that I would need him for Charmander. Speaking of Charmander, he's out next, and he went down to a couple of double kicks, though not before he got Emperor down to 12 health. Next is Abra, and knowing that it's pretty much free, I decided to start by setting up Focus Energy, before KOing with Peck. Last is Rattata, and I one-shotted with Double Kick. Moving right on to the SSN rival battle. He led with Pidgeotto, so I led with Emperor and 2-shot with Thrash. Next is Kadabra, and I switched to Otis to push to sleep. That ended up being unnecessary though, and I took it out with 1 Thrash, which is also what happened for Raticate. Last is Charmeleon, and I got it low with Thrash, but I then confused it from Thrash and had my accuracy dropped, so Emperor eventually went down. Thankfully though, I still outsped and finished him with Otis. Surge was shockingly easy. Pun. I led with Emperor the Nidoking and swept his whole team with Dig after teaching it the TM that I got from the Cerulean City Rocket Grunt. Here's where the game really opens up a lot, and since I don't have the flying type that I want yet, I can't challenge Erica, so I decided to do the Rocket Hideout stuff. While I was doing the Rocket Hideout stuff, Otis evolved into Venusaur. That's not too surprising, this run is basically an Otis and Emperor duo run at this point. Giovanni was frankly way too easy. I beat his 2 rock types with Razor Leaf from Otis, then took out Kangaskhan with a bunch of hits from Emperor. Time for the Pokemon Tower rival battle. I accidentally led with Otis, switched out to Emperor, got Pidgeotto into red, then switched back to Otis to get rid of the accuracy drops he'd put on me. I immediately switched back to Emperor and finished him off. Next is Execute. I OHKO'd with Thrash. Moving on to Alakazam now, and I might have been able to deal with it using Thrash and Alakazam's bad physical defense, but I opted to instead switch to Otis and set up double chip damage with Poison and Leech Seed. It took a while, but I did eventually manage to do so, and then I switched out to Emperor to finish it off. Next is Water Onix, and it went down to 2 Thrashes, but not before getting Emperor down to only 9 HP. Last is Charmeleon, and I switched out to my HM Slave Nidoran to get rid of the confusion. After HM went down, I brought Emperor back in and took him out with 1 Thrash. In Fuchsia City, I catch my next Pokemon, a Poliwag that I named Polly, but she won't be sticking around for long. Those of you who saw my first Nuzlocke video know where I'm going with this. I dropped Polly off at the daycare and ran back and forth until she grew to level 24, and then I used a rare candy to evolve her into Poliwhirl. Then I immediately traded her away for a Jynx that was named Zinx. Bad name, I know. Jynx's appearance is odd, but in Kanto, it freaking dominates. With just its stab, Jynx beats Erica, Koga, Giovanni, the rivals Pidgeot and Execute, Bruno, Agatha, and Lance. That's almost half of the major battles in this game. I decided to give Jynx a test run against Erica, since I'm supposed to have already beaten her. This ended up being a more interesting battle than I expected. I one-shot her with Victory Bell with Ice Punch, but then I grew to level 31, causing Zinx to ignore orders and use Double Slap instead of Ice Punch, which hardly did anything thanks to Jynx's poor physical attack. Thankfully, I finished off her Tangela the next turn, and then her Vileplume was a one-shot, but I was honestly laughing through most of the rest of that fight. I can't even be mad, that was just funny. Jynx's moveset by level up is lacking, so I decided to head to Mr. Psychic's house, yes, that is actually what he's called, and get the TM for Psychic, and taught that to Zinx. I decided to head right for Koga next, since Zinx can probably mop the floor with his team using Psychic. This did not end up being more interesting than I expected, and I swept his whole team with Psychic. At this point, we're pretty much at the part of the game that's just a huge boss rush, so there's not going to be a ton of in-between battle stuff anymore. Rival Final time. I led with Zinx to OHKO as Pidgeot, then I switched out to Emperor, who took down Water Onix after a ton of thrashing. Next is Execute, and I switched out to Zinx to OHKO with Ice Punch. Next is Charizard, and I switched out to Emperor, who got it down to a little below half before going down, so I switched to Zinx to finish the job. Last is Alakazam, and I kept Zinx in, used Lovely Kiss to put him to sleep, and then took him out with a couple of Ice Punches. After the fight, I picked up the Gift Lapras, but I boxed it because I don't want to use it for this fight, and we're on to Giovanni. I swept his entire team with either Double Kick or Dig. I realized during this fight that it's a really good thing that evil team leaders are absolutely terrible at their jobs, or the whole Pokemon world would be in shambles. In my Pokemon Sword game, I have a full team of level 100 Pokemon that got that way in like a week after breeding them at level 1. There is no reason Giovanni should still have a Nidorino as the evil team leader. The next battle I'm gonna do is Sabrina, but first I need to go get the last Pokemon I'm gonna catch, Zapdos. I Master Balled it immediately. There's no way I'm fighting Zapdos. Now welcome to the team, Zapper. Sabrina was, unsurprisingly, insanely easy. I swept her whole team with Drill Peck from Zapdos, taking advantage of their low physical defense. Next is Blaine, and I led with Lapras, planning to dominate against his team. Unfortunately though, I was underleveled, and Lapras is incredibly slow, so Lapras went down to Rapidash. I brought an Emperor, but he also went down. Thankfully, I could finish the job with Zapper. We're finally a gym leader Giovanni now. I swept up to his Nidoking with Lapras using Surf, before Lapras's poor speed caught up with her. I brought in Emperor, forgetting that Earthquake doubles in power on the semi-invulnerable turn of Dig. He went down before even getting to land a hit. Last I brought in Zapper, who KO'd his Nidoking and Dugtrio with Drill Peck. Now we're at the last roadblock before the Pokemon League, the last normal rival battle. I led with Zapper to Oko Pidgeot with Thunderbolt, and then switched to Otis to Oko his Rhyhorn. Next is Alakazam, and I switched out to Zinx to get her a bit of XP. He used Psychic, I used Lovely Kiss, he stayed asleep for a turn, the next turn he woke up and disabled Ice Punch, and I, knowing I'd have to if I wanted Zinx to survive this, switched out to Zapper to finish the job. Execute is out now, and I switched back to Jinx to one-shot with Ice Punch. Now we're at Charizard, and I switched to Zapper, misclicked Drill Peck letting him hit a Scary Face, and then finished him with Thunderbolt. Last is Water Onix, and he outsped me thanks to Charizard's Scary Face, and used Hydro Pump, landing Zapper at 3 health before I took him down with Thunderbolt. Now we're finally on to the Elite Four, starting with Ice Trainer Lorelei. I led with Zapper and swept her team up to Lapras. Unfortunately though, Lapras lived a Thunderbolt and hit me with Confuse Ray, so I switched out to Otis, forgetting that Lapras is part Ice. She got Otis down to 1 HP, causing him to waste his Iapa Berry before I switched back to Zapper, finished her off, and swept the rest of her team. Now on to Fighting Trainer Bruno. I led with Otis, knowing that he leads with Onix, and took it out in 1 Razor Leaf. Next is Hitmonchan, and I switched to Zapper to take it and is following the champ out in a few Drill Packs. For Hitmonlee, I decided to switch to Jinx to get her some levels, but then he outsped and one-shot her. Man, I forgot just how frail Jinx is. I brought Zapper back in to take it out, and last is another Onix. He outsped me and used Earthquake, doing quite a lot, but then I took him out. Oh, hey, a little FYI for the rest of the run. After those fights, I remembered that I still had the Strength HM on Otis, so I reloaded my save to head to the move deleter and replace it with Earthquake, so that's why the moves and levels are different. Moving on to Agatha, I led with Zinx, but because of how frail she is, Zinx went down to Shadow Ball before even getting a single hit in. I brought in Zapper, who has swept a few of her Pokemon, but not before getting badly poisoned, so I switched out to Otis for 2 reasons. One, to reset the toxic poison damage, and the other to use Earthquake. Unfortunately, Earthquake still didn't do much, so I brought Zapper back out, and Zapper did take out the Arbok, but it went down to Toxic at Gengar. Otis was pretty much useless. I really need to grind, I am insanely underleveled. I came back after getting Zinx caught up with Zapper at level 58, and getting Otis to level 52 and giving him a Quick Claw. I swapped up to her second Gengar, which put me to sleep, and then one-shot with a crit Shadow Ball. I brought in Zapper to finish off her second Gengar, and then her Haunter. Last before the champion is Dragon Trainer Lance. I led with Zapper, knowing that he leads with Water Onix, and I one-shot with Thunderbolt. I did the same for Aerodactyl, but not before he outsped and used Ancient Power. Now we're at the 3 Pokemon that are actually dragons, and I switched out to Zinx and Oko'd all 3 of them with Ice Punch. Unfortunately, I forgot to change the battle style back to Switch after grinding, because grinding gets sped up a lot being on set, so Zinx did take 1 Dragon Rage, but Dragon Rage is Dragon Rage, so it only did 40 damage, and then I outsped and Oko'd the rest of the team. Last is the Pokemon Champion. I led with Zapper, hoping to one-shot his Pidgeot. I did just that, and next is Rhydon. I switched out to Venusaur and Oko'd with Razor Leaf. Out now is Alakazam, and I switched to Zinx to use Lovely Kiss, and I stayed in just in case he woke up, and took him out with a couple of Ice Punches. Water Onix time, and I brought in Zapper to Oko with 1 4-time super effective Thunderbolt. Moving on to Executor now, and I used Zinx to one-shot with Ice Punch. I could have kept in Zapper, but I want to use all my Pokemon as much as I can, rather than just leaning on Zapper, so I didn't. Last is Charizard, and for this one I did switch to Zapper, and I OHKO'd with Thunderbolt. Oh man, this fight was fun. Okay, so here's the team that I beat the league with, but the two at the bottom are the other two Pokemon that I still consider members of the team, even if Lapras really didn't stick around for all that long. Okay, this run was a lot of fun, but we are not done yet. This is the closest I'll likely ever come to doing a casual playthrough of Fire Red, so in a few days, not yet sure when, but if this video comes out on time, probably Wednesday? I don't know. I'll do a live stream of doing the Sevi Islands, probably just do the whole thing straight through. I hope you'll watch that, but since I don't have much to say about this run, this has been fun, and I bid you all adieu. Peace out, Absol-lites!